Good afternoon and welcome to the latest installment of our BBB webinar series. I'm your host today, Ben Spradling, and I am really excited about today's topic, creating social media strategies to drive business growth. I'll introduce you to our expert speakers in just a moment, but before I do that, I wanted to go over some housekeeping items for those who may be joining us for the first time. Resources like today's webinar, those are made possible by BBB accredited businesses. Those are businesses that have taken a pledge to act with integrity and really uphold BBB's 8 standards of trust. We really want to thank them today for their dedication to furthering BBB's vision of creating a marketplace where buyers and sellers trust each other. I also want to remind you that these webinars are available on our YouTube channel. You can find a link to that channel in the chat box that can be accessed by selecting the chat button at the bottom of your screen. And since you're looking at that chat button already, find the Q&A button located right next to it. During today's presentation, you have an opportunity to ask questions. Submit those in the Q&A box at any time, and we'll reserve the last 10 minutes or so to answer those. You also have the ability to upvote any questions that are relevant to you. Please don't hesitate to look at other questions being asked. We will be asking questions based on the number of upvotes they receive. With all that taken care of, I'm really excited to introduce you to today's speakers. Chris Gislow serves as the Vice President with Theory, the West Coast's largest independent public relations agency. His background in Washington, D.C., both in political affairs and nonprofit communications, he brings a unique perspective to the work his team does every day. A tireless creator and digital consumer, Chris acts as Theory's resident expert on all things content. He can be found advising senior leaders across the West Coast on everything from media relations storytelling to social media campaigns. His ability to immerse himself in his clients' worlds routinely positions him as a subject matter expert across multiple industries. Chris is joined today by Erin Dubotz. Erin serves as an account executive with Theory, and her professional background includes stops in industries including travel and tourism, nonprofit PR, and book publicity. Born and raised in upstate New York, Erin first brought her passion for PR to Theory as a production assistant before advancing to her current account executive role. A reliable voice on corporate communications, Erin regularly leverages her experience in graphic design and social brand building to the tremendous benefit of Theory's clients. So Chris and Erin, thank you again for joining us today. Without any further delay, I will turn the stage over to you.
Awesome, Ben. Thank you so much. And thank you to everyone who took the time to join us today. We really appreciate it. We hope you get value out of this situation. As was said, please make sure you start adding to the Q&A, adding to the chat box. We'd love to answer your specific questions to make sure you get what you need out of this session. Before we jump in, I do want to just extend a thank you to the BBB for having us back. You know, we were here about a year ago talking about a completely different subject at that time, which was how to create culture outside of the office when you're in a virtual environment. So we're really excited to be back to talk about social media and creating business strategies that help push your business forward. But again, another thank you to the BBB for all they've done over the past year to help accredited businesses really keep on their path, find their way forward, and make sure their customers know how to support them. Before we jump in, our goals for today is to take a look at social media from a high-level perspective to try and give an overview. We know that some of you may be deep into social media for your business and are looking for more kind of expert level tips of how you can move forward. Others might be just starting out their presence or trying to figure out what they do or where they should be or what platforms they should be on. And so our goal is to try and touch that at a very high level. But again, if you have questions, feel free to drop them in the chat along the way here. So topics of discussion, we've already said hello, so we'll go ahead and skip that part of it, but we'll tell you a little bit about us and a little bit about our firm. We'll then look at the state of social media, take a look at the big platforms that you're gonna know, your Facebooks, your Twitters, LinkedIn. Where are they? What do the audiences look like? And then also what new emerging platforms are looking like. From there, we'll take a look at creating a social media strategy, what you need to do to help think about what's your business's social media strategy, what's important to have in place, and how do you create what we call a social media playbook that takes that strategy and makes it so that anyone on your team can implement it and help you push your business goals forward. We'll take a look at the difference between organic, which is just posting yourself, versus paying to post on social media, the benefits, what you should consider, and what to be aware of, how you can get started, and then some best practices on everything from just best times to post to working with social media influencers. So again, about us, Theory is celebrating its 40th year in business. We are based in Seattle, but we're a West Coast shop. with clients from Palmer, Alaska, all the way down to San Diego, and then as far east as Denver. And we do a little bit of everything. We do a traditional public relations and media relations, but a big thing of what Aaron and I focus in on is digital communications and specifically social media. And that's why we're excited to talk to you today. So as was mentioned, my name is Chris Gisela. I'm one of the 2 vice presidents at our firm. I've been in the firm for going on 8 years now, and have specialized in digital media as well as crisis communications and general PR. And then Aaron, do you want to say hello real quick?
Yes. Hi, everyone. I'm Erin Dubotz. I'm an account executive with Fury. I've been with Fury, like was mentioned, since the production assistant role, and have now grown into account executive in just about 3 years. And I really like to focus on consumer-facing digital marketing, lifestyle, and more of like the food and beverage, nonprofit, some real estate, social media, and really work with influencers, as we will get into.
Yeah, Erin's the rock star when it comes to social media on our staff, so I knew I couldn't do this without her help today. Let's start our chat today just taking a look at what social media looks like here in 2021. Most likely these 3 on the screen, you either have profiles as a business and in your personal life, or know somebody who does based on the numbers that you see below. They're still the big 3 and the ones that get the most attention and the most bandwidth, active users, all of that across the board. So it's a good place for us to start. Facebook still is the most used and most engaged platform across the world, especially in the United States. There's almost 3 billion active users, which means someone who logs in once every 30 days. Most people actually log in a lot more than that. Most people are logging on every 3 to 5 days. So imagine that 3 billion people that are active on a regular basis on the platform. You'll hear a lot about how Facebook's demographic is older, and I think part of that is true, but as you'll see there's still an age demographic of 25 to 34 that makes up about 26.3% of those almost 3 billion users. And the split is now a little bit more male on Facebook, with about 56% male, 44% female. But it's still the place where most of the conversations happen, where people are still connected to everyone in their personal network, their high school friends, their college friends. It's something that spans across age demographics. You have grandparents that are keeping track of their grandkids and their family that's spread out across the world. So it is a place that's probably important for your business to be. But as we see in the last bullet point there, it is a pay to play. And we'll talk a little bit about more what that means. But in order to get your content seen by a wider audience than just the small part of those who follow you, it's something that you sometimes have to invest a little bit of dollars in. And we'll talk about what that looks like later on in our presentation. Twitter skews a little bit more to more highly educated users, with about 187 million active users across the world. It still acts as an ongoing news feed that is consistently updating, consistently scrolling with the latest and most breaking news heads there first. The demographics skew a little bit more towards that 30 to 49-year-old age range. About 44% of the makeup on the platform is in that age range, and heavily skews male at about 68% to 32% female. The third big one in the room is Instagram. It is number 2 to Facebook, and it's important to know that it's also owned by Facebook. So that's why there's often cross-sharing between those 2 platforms. But you can see that they're starting to gain. They've got 1 billion active users across the space, and the demographics are even better in that 25 to 34 age range, with about 33%. And this is one that skews heavily female at about 57%. This is the platform where if you have a business that has great photography, that has a product that showcases well, a space that showcases well, if you have regular photography that you can post, then Instagram is going to be a place for you. And it's also the place where most of the social media influencers, which is individuals who have a following that specialize in a specific place, like lifestyle or hospitality or female fashion, male fashion, most of them have their platforms on Instagram, and that's where they're breaking and showing the latest trends to their audiences. Looking to some emerging ones, YouTube, which has of course been around forever, is still one of the top search engines in the world. It's owned by Google and has about 2 billion active users on its platform. And it skews a little bit younger than the platforms that we just looked at. It's 15 to 25%, 25-year-old age range is about 77% of who's on YouTube. heavily male, and most people that spend time on there spend 41, almost 42 minutes a day on for viewers that are 18 years old and above. So they are consuming lots of content on there. Imagine almost an hour a day just consuming content on YouTube itself. TikTok, which I know has been joked about as a trend, I'd say coming out of the pandemic, this is no longer a trend. It's something that's going to be challenging and continue to challenge Instagram and Facebook as an emerging platform. There's over 100 million active users, with many, many more jumping on the bandwagon as time emerges, including lots of brands and organizations. It's not just for teens either. 18 to 24-year-olds make up about 30% of their audience, and about 60% of the audience is female. And another one of those time spent per day, this is where a lot of eyeballs are. Almost an hour a day, 45 minutes a day is spent on TikTok by its users. So when you grab someone on that platform, it's somewhere where they're spending a lot of time and consuming a lot of content. LinkedIn, that classic B2B platform, has a lot of active users on it as well, about 738. It does skew a little bit older into the 46 to 55-year-old age range, with almost an even balance between male and female. But 63% of users access the network monthly, with about 22% accessing weekly. I'd say if you're a business that's in the B2B space, keep an eye on LinkedIn, because even though 63% of LinkedIn users access it regularly, very few actually post on it. And so what that means is that there's an opportunity to have your content be seen by many, many active users that are on the platform without a lot of competition, which is great if you're in that B2B space to get directly to your audience. Pinterest is still hanging out there. It's social media with about 416 million active users, more in that 35 to 49-year-old age range. Again, still very heavily female at 71%. And about 80% of mothers who have a presence on the internet have a presence on Pinterest and use it as a tool to help post what they're interested in, trends, things like that. So that's an overview of kind of where things stand. And there's new and emerging platforms that are coming out every day, but these are the big ones in the room when you're thinking of your business, of where you should consider, do I need to be on these platforms? But we know that can be pretty overwhelming whenever you're thinking, what does a social media strategy look like? How do I even approach this? How do I know where to start? So we've tried to boil it down into a few quick, simple steps. And the first thing is identifying your platforms and your goals. Take a look, just like you would on the business side of things. Look at who's your target customer. What do those key personas look like? Are there specific age ranges, demographics, locations? What are they doing? How are they engaging with you as a business? And then take that back and look at, what are your overall business goals and how can social media help you get there? Are you just trying to raise awareness for your business? Are you actually trying to get someone to do a transaction through e-commerce? Are you trying to get them to order online? Look for your hours to come visit you in person? What does that look like? And that will help you pick out what platform makes the most sense for you. You also have to think through, what information are they looking for whenever they search for your business? Are they trying to find your hours, menu, online ordering, e-commerce site, things like that? People use their social media platforms as a big way to search whenever they're looking for something. So if you're, as long as your Facebook page is updated with your hours, a link to your menu, online ordering links, that's how a lot of people are going to find you and are going to find a lot of information. The last thing I would say whenever you're thinking about the platforms is, don't try and reach everyone. Don't be on every platform. If we were going back and we were in 2006, 2007, I would be advising you to try and be on every platform, try and have content on each platform. It's not necessary now. The platforms have kind of self-selected themselves out with their audiences that change a lot, but they're still kind of in that general area where I would say, make sure you understand your audience, pick the platform that's the best way and most strategic way to reach them, and also commit to those platforms and try and grow an audience there before expanding into new territories. The second big element of deciding on your social media strategy is identifying the voice and tone for your business online and on your social media platforms. Is this something that matches how you present yourself in your marketing? Is it how it matches you present yourself from a staff capacity of someone who, answers the phone at your front desk or online whenever somebody contacts you? Do you want that to be different on social media? Do you want it to match? Is it more playful online than it is in person? Or is it very professional? Trying to decide that and getting that voice right away helps you as you're thinking through your social media strategy and the content that you're actually going to post. So again, are you conversational? Are you professional? Is your organization scientific? Is it an authority on a certain thing? Is it friendly, approachable? Try and use words like this to define what you are and what the voice of your business is going to be on social media, and try and make it match to what people are going to get from an in-person experience as well. And then tone wise, how do you integrate new forms of media? Are you using emojis and funny faces? Do you put GIFs up for content so that it shows off a fun side for your business? Do you tell jokes? Do you ask for content or comment from your followers? Try and give yourself a bright line of how much you want to push it and how much you want to develop out for your business, what that voice and tone looks like. And then finally, once you have those identified, you're going to start creating the content pillars for your social media strategy. These are the 3 items that determine whether or not it's content that you should post. It's the guiding force that whenever you're sitting there and you're thinking through, oh man, I got to build out my social media content calendar for the month. I don't even know what to post. This is the document that you pull out and you say, okay, I can start to develop content around these items. And this is giving me a good guideline of what to do. The most important thing is it should not be all sales content. The important thing to remember about social media is that it's exactly that. It's social. It's something that needs to be a two-way connection between you and your audience. They want to know about you. They want to know about you as the business owner. It's the same reason that they support you in person and get to know you and want to work with you. They want to see your personality show off, those of your employees. They want it to be about you and they want to have a conversation with you. So when you're thinking about the content that you're building, I like to break it out into these 3 content pillars. The first is outside content. This is content that is not about your business, which I know sounds weird to be suggesting about 60% of it, but it's about building a community and it's about talking about why you're in the business you're in and why you're proud to support the communities that you support and serve the customers that you serve. So about 60% of your content should be about your community, your neighborhood, sharing customer photos and reviews, talking about business partners that you work with, others that are in your neighborhood that you like to work with, all of that type of content, because it makes you and shows you as a neighborhood contributor and somebody that wants to be a member of your community. It allows opportunities to tag other businesses and let them know that you're talking about them so that you can build a relationship with them and start sharing content. And it also is less focused on you, which is a good thing. But that being said, people still want to know about your business. 30% of what you post should be inside content. It's backgrounds and stories about your business, about your employees, what makes you a great place to work, what makes you a great place to be for your audiences and for your clients. Why do they come in? Why do they come to you time and time again? And then updates to, of course, your services and products. Those are really important things that you have to post, of course, to let people know what's going on. The last 10% is where you can spend a lot of time doing your sales content and your call to action. So this is where we're asking people to come in for a sale, come see a special, call for customers to buy and visit. And this is where we're asking them to say, you've engaged with us, you obviously like us as a business, now please come and frequent our business because we need your support. So thinking through your content within these pillars and building out what this means and what this specializes in for your business is really important as you're thinking through your social media strategy and how you want to approach this moving forward. The last thing whenever you're thinking about your strategy is determining your posting cadence, which is how often you're actually going to post. And it depends on what platforms you're on. And Aaron's going to talk about that here in a minute. But the biggest thing I'll tell you is that social media posting schedules must be consistent to see results. It's not something that you can post consistently for 2 weeks, take 3 weeks off, and then come back and post for 6 weeks, come back and you're not posting for 2 weeks. You really need to be consistent and you really need to post whenever your followers are most active. Here's the recommendations that we have for the minimum posting cadence. On Facebook, you're looking at about 2 to 3 times per week. The same per Instagram in your actual feed, and 1 time a day on your stories, which are photos and videos that disappear after 24 hours from your followers. Twitter is a little more frequent at 2 to 3 times per day, and LinkedIn is 1 to 2 times per week. Now, before we get into the panic of how we actually do this, I'm going to offer the best tip that I have as far as trying to plan out content ahead of time and making sure that it's a priority for you. It seems counterintuitive, but what I would recommend is every month, start your month by setting aside 1 to 2 hours of your time and actually build out the content that you want to post on for that month, a majority of it, as much as you can. So on Facebook, you need about 12 posts per month on average. So if you can even knock out 6 pieces of content by sharing, upcoming festivals in your neighborhood for the summer, sharing an update from your business next door on something that they're doing, sharing updates on what the community looks like as we continue to reopen. And then also, weaving in another 3 to 4 posts about a feature on one of your employees, an upcoming special that you have. That's going to help you generate a lot of your content ahead of time. And then you're going to be able to spread it out throughout the month. And you're not every week trying to panic and post something new. Now, Erin, I'm going to pass it over to you so you can go ahead and talk about the best times to post based on the graphs that we have here up on the screen.
Thanks, Chris. So like he said, the charts on the screen are the best times to post. So in addition to posting 2 to 3 times per week on Facebook, it's good to know when will that post be the most relevant to your followers and when are people most likely to see it and engage with it. So these charts are constantly updated. We get ours from Sprout Social, and you can find these online if you ever need to reference back. But you can see that 1 a.m. and 11 p.m. are not really the best times to post because people are asleep. But if you're posting around noon, or there's also usually around like 8 or 9 a.m., especially on Twitter, there's an early morning crowd commuting, waking up, checking their phones. Those are the times that people are really going to see your content. And weekdays, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday on Facebook are really popular times to post. Tuesday, especially on Instagram. So kind of knowing that if you have an important announcement or if you're posting about something for the weekend, it might be better to do it on Tuesday to give your followers a little bit of time to hear about it and digest the information, and they're more likely to see it rather than posting the day of or the day before. And especially on stories, that's where you want to do the day of, because the way that the algorithms work, stories are chronological. So it's only up for 24 hours. So if you post something, it's going to show up right in people's feed right when they open their app. So that is where if you have, like, say you posted something on a Tuesday, you can share that to your story the day of and say, hey, don't forget this is happening. And that's another way to get more engagements with your posts. All right, so now we're going to talk about paid social media content. So like Chris mentioned, you have to pay to play. Facebook especially, which as we said, owns Instagram. So that means Facebook and Instagram are definitely a pay to play platform, which basically means that you should use a mixture of organic, which is non-paid content, and paid content. And they can kind of work interchangeably. You can promote some of your organic content and you can create just paid content. Each platform limits the reach that organic content will find followers just based on the algorithms, because they do want your ad money. But fortunately, you can do it with a pretty low budget. So especially on Instagram, organic content is really important because Instagram is visual. So continuing to post nice photos or videos on your feed will create that bank of content that followers will go to your profile and look at. And then you can boost posts. If you do Instagram specifically, they will direct people usually to your profile, but it's one post that gets boosted. And that way you can use one post to get more eyes to your page, and you'll already have that organic content there for people to go in and look at. On Facebook, it is very similar, and you can promote content that goes on Instagram if you have an Instagram account affiliated with your Facebook page. And that way it will show up on Instagram stories, Facebook stories, in the Facebook marketplace, depending on if you are boosting or promoting something that you're selling. It's really good to get that in the marketplace. So there's different ways that the Facebook content can be boosted rather than just the Instagram content, which will show up in your feed. So what exactly does pay to play mean? On Facebook, an average of 2% of your followers are going to see your organic posts, which is not very much. And people who do not follow you are it's almost impossible for them to see content if they're not following you, unless someone that they are friends with engages with your content. So the best way to get over this is to put a little bit of money behind your content. And there, as we said, there's 2 main ways to do this on Facebook. You can boost a post. So if there is So you're having your event on Friday and you post about it on Tuesday, you might want to boost it for the rest of that week so that more people are seeing, hey, this is happening right now. Or you can create campaigns which run for a longer period of time. They don't have to, but typically they run for a little bit longer. And that would be more like a campaign to get more likes to your page and more awareness. Or you can do a campaign for lead conversion if you're selling something, or messages if you're trying to get people to reach out and learn more about your company. So there are quite a few different ways you can do this, but it is good to know the difference between a boost, which is fast and quick, and you can do for as little as $20 a week, or you can do larger campaigns that are more built out with separate ad sets, and that's a little bit more of the digital marketing. So some of our recommendations for choosing what to promote, look at what performs best. That's another reason why organic content is so important. If you're posting and your followers aren't really engaging with it, and then you post a picture of your team and say, hey, we wanted to introduce ourselves, and it gets 50 more likes than any other post, you know that people are interested in that. So that is a good option to boost or promote, or using something that shows that personal side rather than sales tactics. And then, like I mentioned, using campaigns specifically for page likes is a great way to grow your following, which will then help your organic content reach more eyes.
Yeah, and Aaron, I'm going to jump in real quick because I saw a question in the Q&A specific about paid media, and then I know there's other questions we've got in there too that we can address here at the end. But there's a question about what's the sweet spot for boosting content. You know, our recommendation is to not go more than $50 a week over a 2-week period for a boosted post. So generally what we find is that content that goes more than 2 weeks kind of gets old to the audience. They don't really like to engage with it after that. So if you put about $100 over a 2-week period, that's a good sweet spot. But don't let that deter you if you want to start smaller than that. What I would say is start at $5 a day, see how things perform, $5 a week, see how things perform, and then slowly ratchet up and go higher from there. But I would say keeping it to a max of about $50 a week for a smaller mid-sized business is probably about right, and is appropriate to get it out of the to more people that don't follow your page. And then the hope is that more of them will like your page, stay engaged with you in the future, and then you don't have to pay for their views after that. So thank you for that question. That's great.
And one thing really quickly to note is Facebook is the easiest to use those smaller budgets and kind of test drive your paid content. LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube, for example, are much harder to advertise on, especially if you do have a smaller budget. So kind of playing around with Facebook boosts and those campaigns with the smaller budget is a great way to see what your followers engage with and what might work well for a larger ad campaign. Okay, so developing your social media strategy, our recommendation is to build your playbook. This is what we do for all of our clients in any social platform that we're launching. And basically it is your document that you can pass on to anybody, and they'll be able to pick up your social media and know exactly what to do, how to manage it, what to post. And it's really useful for transitioning, maybe if you don't have the time to post every day or don't have the time to create all of the content. This is a great way to say, here's everything that you need to know about our channels. Feel free to create some content, post on stories, go engage with people, that kind of thing. So the playbook should outline your brand, your voice, and your tone, which Chris already talked about, developing those tones. If you're going to be funny, if you want to be a source of information, depending on what your organization or business does, developing that tone and laying it out very clearly in the playbook. Your content pillar, so that's that 60, 30, 10 that we talked about. Your posting cadence, so maybe you post twice a day on Twitter, once on LinkedIn a week, and you don't have Instagram, so you post 4 times on Facebook. Or perhaps you only have Facebook and Instagram and you really prioritize that and post 4 times a week on both. Just kind of laying out what you expect from your social media. That way, if you haven't posted in 3 weeks and you don't remember what you used to post, you can look back and it's all right there for you. You should also put your paid content approach, your monthly budgets, especially if you're going to have multiple hands working on the account, so you can keep track of those budgets. And then the goals for each platform. So we typically put monthly, quarterly, and yearly goals of how much we would like to see our audience grow, how many impressions we would ideally like to have in engagements, and then also laying those out if it's an organic month or a paid month. So if we don't do any paid content for a month, we'll obviously have thousands and thousands of impressions less than if we're boosting posts, because you can just reach so many more people. So make sure that you're defining those goals based on if you're going to be doing just organic content, how much money you're going to be putting in your budget, because all of that will affect your results and should be noted.
And Aaron, one thing I would add to here is on the goals for each platform. It's really important to understand that number of followers is, of course, really important. It tells you, how many people want to stay engaged with your business. But I think it's really important to remember that not every business is going to reach 1 million followers. It's going to be very rare, and it might not be very strategic for your business. If you're local and your local community is 10,000 people, then you're going to have a follower number that's going to be a little bit lower than that, and that's okay, as long as it's the followers that make sense for you. It's the followers that are going to be serving in your community. But we like to track more than just follower numbers. We also like to track impressions, which is how many people actually view your content, and then engagements, which is how many people actually interact with your content, either through a like, a heart, a share, a comment. And that tells us different things. Someone who follows the page tells us that they're interested. They may have visited once or twice or want to visit in the future. If they looked at your content, it tells us that their interest level is a little bit deeper, that it's something that they pay attention to whenever they see it in their newsfeed on a daily basis when they're scrolling. But the biggest thing that we can take away is engagements, because that's someone taking the actual time to give a like to a post, comment on a post, share a post with their network, which means that they value enough to tell their friends and family about you as well. And so it's really important to look holistically at what are your follower, impression, and engagement trends over time as you implement these social media strategies. And as Aaron said, try and have realistic goals that push you to be consistent, that push you to see growth over a 6-month, year-long time frame. And takes a look at the holistic side and doesn't just focus on followers as the only metric.
Right. One quick thing to add to that, depending on what you want to achieve for your brand kind of makes a difference on how much you're tracking each of these numbers, the followers, impressions, and engagements. So if you're a brand new business, you just created your page and you want a lot of people to see it so they're aware of what's going on, impressions and followers are definitely going to be one to pay attention to. But if you're a pretty well-established brand, you have your core following and they are really engaged with your content, that even if you're not reaching more impressions every week or month, if you have engagements, it shows that those people are really invested in your company. And that following that you do have is a really close-knit group. So those might be more important than impressions. So it kind of depends on your business, your brand, and your page. So something to keep in mind. All right, moving on to best practices for using social media. How do you actually take everything we just said and put it into practice? So once you have your playbook locked and it's ready to go, feel free to create your profile. So if you already have a profile, you might want to update it with, make sure your logo or a photo that really represents your organization or business is your profile picture. We recommend using logos because people will automatically recognize it and know that's your brand. And create header photos or videos as well that show off something about your company. For example, this is a screenshot of our Twitter page, and you can see that we're celebrating our 40th year this year. So a lot of our social media is tailored to that to try to celebrate that. So that's what our Twitter header is focusing on. So update your social media profiles, make sure that the pictures are high quality and not blurry so that people can see them when they are on an itty bitty phone screen. And then update your profile with what your business does. So if someone who's never heard of your business stumbles upon your Twitter or Facebook page, they need to know exactly what you do and why they would be interested in following you. Facebook has a lot more room for your about section, so you can fill it with as much as you'd like. Twitter and Instagram are a bit shorter. There's only a certain amount of characters you can fit, so you really have to pick and choose what is the most important thing about your business. You can also add recent awards or honors. So in our example, Fury was honored as one of America's best PR agencies this year. So we were really excited about that. We put it in our bio. And you can see we also tweeted it and then pinned it to the top of our profile so that when people go to our Twitter page, that's one of the first things they see. So if you're looking for a PR agency and you see honored by Forbes as one of the best, you know they're already a more credible agency than someone else whose profile might not look quite as put together. So it really does make a difference with your customers and your clients. Like Chris said, build out a month of content and then use a scheduling tool or just set reminders on your phone to post. This is so much easier than stressing out every day and saying, oh my gosh, I forgot to post, or it's already 9 p.m. you forgot to post, and then people aren't as engaged as they are at noon. But it's hard to remind yourself every day to create content at noon, especially if you don't have an idea of what's going on. This is also a really great way to pay attention to what's coming up a month in advance, 2 weeks in advance. So when we're looking at the social content that we create, we're already looking at July. So we're a month ahead thinking about what's coming up. And it's a great way to not forget and like let something sneak up on you, especially if you're doing events or promotions, or if you're a hospital and National Nurses Month creeps up on you and you don't want to forget to post about that because it could come off not in your best interest. So keeping in mind things like that, it's a really great way to just be on top of everything going on, and you'll be able to have your consistent cadence so your posts don't come off as spam or forgetting to post for 3 weeks at a time. And then dedicate 1 hour a day to engaging with people after you post. If people are commenting on it, a really great way to build your following and get followers who are really like active and engaged with your tone is by commenting back to them. So if someone comments and says, we love the work that you did on our house, you can say, thanks so much for using our service. We really appreciate you as a customer. And that shows them that you are making that connection. Like Chris said, it's social media. You want to have that conversation with them. And that's a really easy way to do it. Okay, some more best practices. First and foremost, have fun. Social media is meant to be fun. It was created as a way for people to show different things about their lives or what's going on. And people are there for information a lot of times, but this also depends on your platform. A lot of it, especially Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, is for fun. I saw someone in the comments say that they're an electrician. So for example, YouTube DIY videos, or hey, how do I change this light switch? Something like that can be really, really useful. So that might be a little bit more of that informational tone, but still don't make the video boring because no one will watch it. So use something like graphics or have you in the video showing off what to do. That's a really great way to get people engaged with your content. Kind of going off of that, be true to your personality. So if you're doing a video like that and you are a fun, energetic person, don't let that come across in the video. Don't try to subdue that for the video unless it's very specific to your brand guidelines. Like we said, respond to questions, be conversational. If someone comments something on your post, feel free to respond to that. Or if it is something that you don't necessarily want public, feel free to DM them and say, hey, thanks so much for reaching out. Or respond to their question. Then you already have them in your messages, and they might be more likely to message you in the future about something, which would be better for your business overall. Like we said, avoid self-promotion or hard selling. They do not perform as well as genuine posts. We've seen this on all of our accounts. Featuring customers or team members, shouting out things that people have done well. Those are the kinds of things that people want to see. Social media is full, especially Instagram is just full of picture after picture. So product shots are great, but they shouldn't be the only thing on your feed. And then, like we've said over and over, keep a consistent cadence of posts, because if you post 12 times in one day and then don't post again for a week, people are likely going to unfollow you because that is just not the normal cadence of scrolling social media. All right, and then talking about influencers. So like Chris mentioned, influencers are people, they're largely on YouTube, Instagram, and some TikTok influencers. We work mostly with Instagram influencers, but they are already on the platform and they already have a large following. So they are a very inexpensive way to market your brand. They already have all of those people engaged with their content who are going to see their content. So if you work with an influencer who has 50,000 followers, that's 50,000 extra eyes that don't already know about your brand, who are likely to go click on your profile as a result of it. So when choosing an influencer, make sure that the influencer is someone who you would want to work with. I remember one of our influencers, we were asking her to do something with fashion, and she specifically focused on sustainable fashion and did not like fast fashion. So that's really important to know when you're reaching out. If your brand is sustainable or isn't sustainable, that's going to make a difference on if you want to work with them, and vice versa if they want to work with you. Kind of going along with that, make sure that they match your views and your beliefs. So if sustainability or something along those lines is super important to your company, and you're outspoken about it, make sure that your influencers match that and are either as outspoken or aren't outspoken in the opposite direction, because that would definitely come off as ingenuine and people would know that you're just paying them to promote your content. Make sure if you are in a local market that your influencer is either based there or has a large following there. And this, you might have to just see where they're posting in their locations or where people are commenting from, clicking on those comments and seeing where those people live, unless you have a software that can already tell you that. But most likely you'll just have to do some digging, spend some time on the platform and see where those people are concentrated. So for example, this is a screenshot of an influencer partnership we did specifically in South Lake Union. So we wanted to make sure, obviously, if we're working in South Lake Union and the influencer's going there, someone in Seattle is better than someone who would have to travel. But we also want people who are as enthusiastic about South Lake Union and the brands there as we are. So someone who works downtown or frequents a certain shop downtown, or is really involved with one of the businesses down there, is a really great way to bring them in, and it's far more genuine than having them go somewhere. It is fun to have them go somewhere for the first time as well, but you can tell when they are actually enthusiastic versus just posting the suggested language that you send them. And then when looking at an influencer, make sure you're looking at engagements as well as likes. There are ways to buy followers and buy likes, so those aren't always a full tell sign of how their engagements are. If they're getting 5,000 likes on a post but only 20 comments, they don't have a very engaged audience. So make sure that you're working with someone who has 100 comments and 150 likes, because that means that almost everyone who saw and liked that post also had something to say about it. And then working with the tier of the influencer will help determine what you should offer them as compensation. If you're working with a lower tier influencer, they might have 5,000 followers, or if you're a really small brand, they might have 1,000, 2,000 followers. And a lot of times you can work with them with collaborations, so you can offer them product or a meal or a service, like they could get their nails done and then show off a picture of their nails or something along those lines. So you might not have to have extra budget, which is a really great way to kind of develop those relationships with influencers and test the waters of if it's working for your business. If you're working with someone with 1 million followers, or if they have to travel out of town to come to your business, or you have to send them something, obviously you're going to need a bigger budget for that. And a lot of influencers now have media kits. So if you don't want to suggest a budget up front, you can reach out, email or DM them and say, hey, we're really interested in partnering with you. Lay out what you might want from them. And then a lot of times they'll respond and say, here's my media kit, here's what this would look like. And you can use that as a baseline, moving on from there. I see a question asking what a media kit is. So a media kit is typically used by magazines or media outlets, but influencers now use them to show off some of their past work. So they'll put some of their biggest collaborations in there, a post that did really, really well, kind of where their audience is based. This is another great way. If you're not sure where their audience is based, you can ask the influencer and they should have some stats on that. They can tell you the average number of impressions their post gets, the average number of likes, And then when you're the Instagram user, you can see in certain cases how many people go to your profile after a post. So there's a lot of information that they have that they can share with you. And they'll also use all of that. If they have a really high following, really great engagements, they'll use that to determine their price. And then the media kit might lay out, we want X amount of money, or I'd like to request X amount of money for a Facebook post, or X amount of money for 2 Instagram stories and a reel. So they'll lay that out and you can kind of move on from there based on what's going to work for your partnership. And then one last tip that we have learned from working with influencers is lay out exactly what you want from them. We've started to say we'd like you to post within 24 hours because sometimes influencers, it is their feed, so they might not want to post right away. But if you're doing something that's time sensitive with your business, you need to let them know that ahead of time. But ultimately, let them have creative freedom. There's very few instances where you will send them photos and they'll post those. For the most part, you want them to come get the content, because the reason you're choosing to work with this influencer is because they already have a great page on their own, and are the content creators, which is what you're working with them for.
That is all we had for y'all today. I know there's lots of questions in the chat and the Q&A. So first, before we jump in, thank you for your time and attention. We know that there's a lot going on in our worlds these days, and we really appreciate you spending time with us. And we hope you're finding value out of this, and hope we can provide a little bit more here as we jump into the questions specifically. So Ben, I see you're popping back on. You wouldn't mind helping us with Q&A? We'll try and tackle some questions.
Absolutely. Thank you, Aaron and Chris, again for that information. We do have about 14 minutes left, and we have several questions that have been submitted for us to tackle in that amount of time if we can do it. So we do have several individuals who are associated with contractors and contracting businesses on joining us for today's webinar. Which platform would be the best for them?
Yeah, I think if you're in the contract business, electricians, general contractors, folks like that, making sure you have a really strong presence on Facebook, because a lot of people, whenever they're searching for that type of service, it's easy for them to just type in, I used ABC contracting, and tag you in that post so that their friends right away know, hey, that's a great resource. My friend used them, they trust them. That is a warm referral right there from day one. If you're going to do that, though, the most important thing is making it as easy as possible for individuals to find you on Facebook. So make sure your hours are updated, make sure your best phone number is available right away, make sure that your website link is correct to the place that you want them to land. And then finally, make sure somebody's monitoring your messages, because oftentimes people will send you a message and say, I have this type of project. Would that be something you'd want to bid on? So I would say concentrating on Facebook is a great thing. Secondarily to that, it's not necessarily a social media platform per se, but the other area I would focus in on is making sure after you have a happy customer, getting a Google review from them, because that's really important to translating into search, and also making sure they work to review you on BBB as well.
We got one more question. I know that we had, prior to today's presentation, we talked about hiring being an issue for a lot of businesses. Yep. If some of those businesses were looking to attract employees using some social media platforms, what are some recommendations you would make for helping that be a little more successful endeavor for them?
Yep, I think if you are, I would utilize platforms that you already have a stronger following on, or where you think you might be able to find the strongest amount of referrals from. So I know if I saw there was a question specifically, kind of someone who was in the beef and meatpacking industry that was looking to use social media. I think in those cases, using a platform like a Facebook makes a lot of sense to post a job, for someone to be able to refer someone who might be looking for work, or might be able to bring somebody in or tag someone. It also allows your current employees to share it if that's something that they'd like to do, to bring friends into that are looking for jobs. LinkedIn is another great source to post jobs, I would say. I personally have not had as much luck paying for their ads specifically for jobs to find a good candidate. So I would say focus more in on a Facebook type of environment than a LinkedIn right at the moment.
We got one more, a little more specific question. We're a B2B fintech company trying to grow our presence on Twitter, but we're finding it a lot harder to grow on that channel as opposed to Facebook or LinkedIn. Have you had any success with paid promotions on Twitter for B2B companies?
Yeah, Aaron, do you want to talk briefly about paid on Twitter, and then I can jump in after that?
Yep, paid on Twitter, I myself am still diving into. So there's definitely lots of resources out there that I consult, but we also found that it's hard to grow Twitter following without using some type of paid promotion behind it. So the best way is to create a tweet that will direct people to your profile. It can be funny, it can be pretty straightforward, but something that's going to grab their attention. And the Twitter ads are a little bit more costly than Facebook and Instagram ads. We found to really be successful, it's more like a few $100s per month. And keeping that promotion going for the whole month will increase your follower count. But if you're specifically looking on Twitter, just know that it is a little bit more expensive to promote there than it is on Facebook.
Yeah, and I would add to that from a strategy perspective, Twitter is really hard to keep engagement on because it's a consistently changing and scrolling feed. So your content goes out of somebody's news feed within 10 seconds, 5 seconds, depending on how fast they're scrolling, how regularly they're watching. So you have to be posting consistently. You also need to be engaging consistently. If you're just posting on Twitter and not replying to people, retweeting other people, it's not worth your time. So what I would say is have a combined effort of a real all-in strategy that has you posting regularly and engaging regularly along with a paid ad.
We had one question submitted from a solo marketer, and one thing that we've heard from several businesses is that they have a very limited amount of resources to put in to some of their social media efforts. What tips would you give some of those smaller businesses that are a little limited in that sense?
Yep. I think the biggest thing is be as strategic as possible. Don't try and be all things to everyone. You do not have to be on every platform. You do not have to even be on more than one platform. What I would recommend is start and go all in on one platform where it's going to be the best to reach a highest propensity of your audience and spend a lot of time there. Spend that time building out your content calendar 1 month ahead. Invest that time at the start of the month so that the rest of the month you're just adding in posts along the way. You're adding in new things that are happening just that week or that you're adding in along the way. And then let it take time. It takes 6 to 8 to 12 months to really see an impact from that effort. So don't get discouraged if it goes away in the first 3 months. So investing that time right away is a good way to do it. Get ahead of it, get yourself into a rhythm, and then it starts to roll out from there.
Kind of going off of that, sorry, I'm going to jump in. If you have a business or a service that isn't visual, you don't have to be on Instagram. A great thing about Facebook is text posts have gotten really popular. Facebook allows you to create huge text with a background as long as it's a certain amount of characters, and those are just as engaged with as photos and videos. So if you don't have the resources to be posting photos all the time, don't worry about Instagram. Try out Facebook or even Twitter and see how that works for you.
And we had one business owner ask, if I use Instagram and also have it also post on Facebook, do I need to post separately on Facebook as well?
I think as long as you're posting on both channels, I think you're okay. So if I'm understanding correctly, someone's saying that if they post on Instagram, it's tied to their Facebook account and goes over. I think the biggest thing is just making sure that the photo that you're using, because you're doing Instagram first, looks nice on Instagram and fits nicely on Facebook as well. So double check if you're cross-posting between the two, because their size ratios are just a little bit different. Make sure that they look okay. A really good free tool that's out there to check, because each social media platform is a little bit different. Sprout Social, which Aaron mentioned, has a paid scheduling platform that we use for our clients, but they have a free tool that will actually let you upload a photo, and then you can download resized photos for a LinkedIn header image, an Instagram photo, an Instagram story. So it resizes everything for you so it's the appropriate size. So that's the biggest thing I would maintain, is make sure just everything looks good on the right platform.
I would also make sure if you're using tags on Instagram, like if you're trying to tag a business or a partner, those might not go directly onto Facebook, depending on if they don't have a Facebook page or if it's a different handle. So if you are doing something specific to tag your partners, I would go on Facebook and manually tag them. It can be on the same post, but just make sure that those also cross over nicely.
How about Yelp? Is that a platform that you two would recommend? And if so, why?
Yeah, I mean, I think it is a place where a lot of people go to see reviews for a company. So it's another one of those places where if you're making sure you have a satisfied customer, asking them to review you on Google and Yelp is a good thing to do. I know a lot of people ask for quotes that way as well. So it's just making sure you have someone who can take the time to respond to all of those things. And that's whenever you find the most value out of it.
And we have a lot of BBB accredited businesses joining us for today's webinar. Is there a preferred way to ask a satisfied customer to post a positive company review on maybe a BBB profile or another platform that hosts some of those reviews?
Yeah, integrated into your workflows of how you end a relationship with a customer at the end of a transaction. If you know that they're happy, they've given you comments along the way, they're satisfied, simply asking. I know that sounds so basic, but most people just don't even ask. You know, whenever you send your invoice over or you send a receipt for payment, whatever that might look like, have a link there on there where it says, we get business because people give us reviews. Would you be willing to take 5 minutes and give us a link for BBB, Google, Yelp, wherever you're spending your most of your time and where you want those reviews to go, and make it easy for them. Give them the links and just ask. Because 9 times out of 10, a lot of people just are waiting to be asked and they don't know where it's most important for you to get those reviews.
So, and we have one last question in the Q&A box. How important is it to increase your followers?
I would say it depends. I think the only way, if you have, I guess it depends on scale, again, is where I would start. If you live in a community where you know your targeted audience is a smaller group of people based on who's going to be one to frequent your business, following is not as important. The bigger thing I would say beyond following is doing the best that you can to post content that is easy to engage with. You respond to comments, you talk to people, show that there's a personality behind the business, show off who you are and give them a reason to come and experience in person with you, because following will follow from there. Engagements show that people like you. So I would track engagements and impressions more than actually caring about following.
Gotcha. And we did have a couple more questions that are not in the Q&A box, but what is the best strategy for integrating hashtags? Will the overuse of hashtags hurt reach for those businesses that use them?
Aaron, you want to tackle that? You're much better at hashtags.
Yes. So hashtags, I know in the past people would hashtag dump in the comments, either Facebook or Instagram, but this is no longer a best practice. They really like 3 to 5 hashtags is what the platforms will best promote in their algorithms, and make sure that you're switching up your hashtags. So if you are if you're selling towels or something, don't put towel shop in every single post because it's just going to look like spam and your followers won't engage with it. But using something along those lines that might be like a little funny depending on the post, or just switching up. If you have 3 main hashtags, just switch them up so that it's not coming across as spam. And then also search those hashtags that you use a lot. So if you want to see what other sellers are selling in the towel market, look at those hashtags and you'll also see what they're posting. And that'll give you a good idea of your competition, what other people are posting, if their followers are engaged, potential customers. So you can really do digging into that to see what might work best for you and other hashtags that you might not already be using that you should.
And before we let you two go, you talked about a lot of different social media tools. One thing that I personally am curious about, which ones are your favorites?
Ooh. Aaron, go ahead.
I definitely like Instagram. I would say that is where I do most of my posting. I was a TikTok hater for a while, but I have been converted. So I am active on TikTok, not creating, but there's so much content on there. And it's just like if your Twitter updates in 10 seconds, your TikTok will update in half a second. There's just so much on there. So definitely keeping up to speed with what's going on.
My favorite is a tie between Instagram, because I love keeping up with people that are in my networks, and then also Twitter as a tie, because I got this current job that I've been in for 8 years because of Twitter itself. It's how I met our CEO, and that's how I actually got this job. So I'm always thankful for that.
I did want to ask you, because we did receive some questions, is this platform available to share with those who have tuned in today? That I think as a reference.
The deck? Yeah,
Yep.
Absolutely. We're happy to share it afterwards.
Okay, great. I think our businesses, I'm sure, would love to have that as a resource for them. I did want to thank Chris and Aaron both again for sharing their insight today. Before I let everybody go, I did want to remind everyone that today's webinar has been recorded. So along with the slide deck that Chris is going to pass along, it can be viewed on our BBB Great West and Pacific YouTube page. We'll also be sending out a link to the recording once it's available. If you're interested in registering for one of our upcoming BBB webinars, please visit our online events page at trust-bbb.org. Thank you all for joining us today. Have a great afternoon. And Aaron and Chris, thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good one.
Thank you.